$50 a week, that's plenty, my son-in-law sneered, freezing my last bank account. He thought he'd broken me, turned me into a silent servant in my own home. That Thursday I walked out with one large bag. When he came back, I was gone. 89 missed calls. First rage, then panic, then desperate begging. They still had no idea this was only the beginning of their nightmare. Before continuing, subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is in your region right now. My name is Alonzo Murphy. I'm 67 years old, and I live in Phoenix, Arizona. Spent 40 years as a certified public accountant, mostly doing audits for corporations. You learn a lot in that line of work, mainly that people will lie about anything if they think they can get away with it. I always believed that family was different, that blood meant something. Turns out I was collecting evidence for the wrong cases all those years. I live in a house on Desert Bloom Drive. Nice neighborhood, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, the kind of place where kids ride bikes on the sidewalk and neighbors wave at each other. It belonged to my daughter Elizabeth, past tense. She died 3 years ago, cancer, quick and brutal. She left behind a husband and a 9-year-old girl who suddenly had no mother. Jeffrey Morrison, my son-in-law, wasn't always the man I see now. I remember when he first started dating Elizabeth. He was 26, charming, worked in IT, had that easy smile that made you want to trust him. He'd help me fix things around the house without being asked. Called me Pops, and meant it warmly. At their wedding, he pulled me aside and said, "I promise I'll take care of her, Alonzo. Always." And for a while, he did. The first year after Elizabeth died, Jeffrey was a ghost. Understandable. The man lost his wife. I moved into their house, my house actually, though Jeffrey didn't know that detail, to help with Sophie, my granddaughter. Someone had to make sure she ate breakfast and got to school on time. Someone had to hold her when she cried for her mother at night. Jeffrey was drowning, and I threw him a lifeline by being there. Year 2, things shifted. Jeffrey started coming back to life, but the man who emerged wasn't the one who'd married my daughter. He started working late, going out on weekends. Sophie and I would eat dinner alone more often than not. When I'd mention it, he'd snap, "I'm dealing with things my own way, Alonzo." Fair enough. Grief hits everyone differently. Then came Vanessa. 8 months ago, Jeffrey brought her home. Vanessa Blake, 34, blonde, worked in marketing or PR, or something that required a lot of Instagram photos. She walked into the house like she owned it, looked around with those calculating eyes, and I saw exactly what she was. A woman who'd found a man with a house and a kid and saw an opportunity. "So you're the grandfather?" she said, not offering her hand. "Jeffrey mentioned you've been staying here." "Helping out," I said. She smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. "That's nice. I'm sure Jeffrey appreciates it." Jeffrey appeared behind her, and I saw something I'd never seen before. My son-in-law looked embarrassed by me. He actually looked embarrassed. Things deteriorated fast after that. Vanessa had opinions about everything. The way I cooked, the way I cleaned, the time I spent with Sophie. She'd make little comments, each one designed to remind me I was a guest in their house. "Jeffrey, does your father-in-law always leave his newspapers on the coffee table?" "Alonzo, we're trying to have family time here. Maybe you could give us some space." I told Jeffrey you probably don't understand modern parenting. It's a generational thing. Jeffrey never defended me, not once. He'd just shrug or change the subject. My daughter would have torn strips off anyone who spoke to me that way. But Elizabeth was gone, and her husband was becoming a stranger. I started doing more around the house to stay useful. Cooking, cleaning, driving Sophie to her activities. I told myself I was helping. The truth was scarier. I was trying to prove I deserved to be there. 2 months ago, Jeffrey stopped pretending. I was making dinner when he walked into the kitchen with Vanessa. They'd been in his office for an hour, talking in low voices. "Alonzo, we need to discuss something," Jeffrey said. He was using his work voice, the one he probably used in meetings. Formal, distant. I turned off the stove. "All right? Vanessa and I have been talking, and we think it's time to establish some boundaries. You've been living here for 3 years. That's a long time." "I'm helping with Sophie," I said. "We appreciate that," Vanessa cut in, though her face suggested otherwise. "But Jeffrey can handle his own daughter, and frankly, having another adult constantly around it's a lot." I looked at Jeffrey. "This is what you want?" He couldn't meet my eyes. I think it's time we all had some independence. You've done enough. Done enough. Like I was a contractor whose services were no longer required. What are you suggesting? I asked. You can stay, Jeffrey said quickly. We're not throwing you out. But there need to be rules. You're eating our food, using our utilities. You need to contribute. Our food, our utilities. In the house my daughter left to me. What kind of contribution? I kept my voice level. Jeffrey glanced at Vanessa. She nodded like a coach encouraging a player. $400 a month, he said, for room and board, and you help out more around the house. Cooking, cleaning, watching Sophie when we need you to. I did the math. $400 a month was nothing compared to what I'd saved over my career. But that wasn't the point. The point was they were charging me to live in my own house while using me as free labor. And if I can't pay, I asked, then we'll need to discuss other arrangements, Vanessa said sweetly. There are assisted living facilities that... I'll pay, I said. That was 2 months ago. Yesterday, things got worse. I was in my room when Jeffrey knocked and entered without waiting for an answer. Vanessa was with him. She was always with him now. New rule, Jeffrey announced. We're putting you on an allowance. $50 a week for personal expenses. I blinked. Excuse me? You've been living off us long enough, Vanessa said. Jeffrey's been too generous, letting you stay here rent-free for years. I'm paying $400 a month, I interrupted. For a fraction of what it costs, she shot back. Do you know what rent is in Phoenix? You're eating his food, using his electricity. Our food, babe, Jeffrey corrected gently. Our house. Our house. The phrase hit me like a slap. $50 a week, Jeffrey repeated. That's more than fair for someone your age. What do you need money for anyway? Someone my age. Like I was ancient, useless. I looked at this man who'd promised to take care of my daughter, who'd stood at her funeral and held Sophie while they both cried. And I saw a stranger, a cruel stranger who'd figured out he had power over me and intended to use it. Fine, I said. Great. Jeffrey smiled. Glad you're being reasonable about this, Alonzo. Vanessa was worried you'd make a scene. They left. I sat on my bed in the small room that used to be Elizabeth's office, surrounded by the belongings I'd accumulated over 67 years, and something cold crystallized in my chest. $50 a week, in my own house, for doing their cooking, their cleaning, raising their child. I walked to my closet and pulled down a box from the top shelf. Inside was my old briefcase from my auditing days. I opened it and took out a leather notebook I hadn't touched in 5 years. Then I sat at my small desk, opened to a fresh page, and began to write. I wrote down everything, every comment, every demand, every time they'd treated me like hired help. I wrote down dates, amounts, specifics. After 40 years of documenting other people's lies and manipulations, I finally had a case that mattered. My hand moved across the page with practiced precision, and for the first time in months, I smiled. The next morning started at 5:45 when my alarm went off. Jeffrey wanted breakfast ready by 6:30. Not asked, wanted. That was the new normal. I stood in the kitchen making eggs and bacon while they were still asleep upstairs. The house was quiet, except for the sizzle of the pan. I used to love this kitchen. Elizabeth and I had renovated it together 10 years ago, before she got sick. We'd picked out the backsplash tiles on a Saturday afternoon, arguing good-naturedly about whether to go with blue or green. She'd won. The blue tiles still gleamed in the early morning light. I plated the food just as Jeffrey and Vanessa came downstairs. Neither said good morning. Coffee's ready, I said. Vanessa wrinkled her nose. Is this Colombian? You know I only drink Ethiopian blend. I'll pick some up today, I said. Make sure it's the organic kind. She sat down, scrolling through her phone. Jeffrey, did you see this place I found? The open house is Sunday. 3 bedrooms, completely updated. Jeffrey sat across from her, already checking his work email. We've talked about this, babe. We've got a house. We've got his house, she said, not bothering to lower her voice. With him in it. Don't you want our own space? I stood at the counter, supposedly cleaning up, but listening to every word. That notebook was upstairs in my room, but I was adding to it mentally. I need to head to the bank today, Jeffrey said, changing the subject. Got some paperwork to handle. Something in his tone made me look up. He was watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. After they left, Vanessa to her office, Jeffrey to his car, I went upstairs and found my credit card missing from my wallet. I checked my phone. My banking app wouldn't open. I called the bank. "I'm sorry, Mr. Murphy," the representative said. "Your account has been frozen at the request of your power of attorney." "I don't have a power of attorney." "According to our records, Jeffrey Morrison has power of attorney over your financial accounts. The paperwork was filed last week." I hung up and sat on my bed, staring at the wall. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from rage so pure it felt like ice in my veins. Last week. While I was cooking their dinners and watching their daughter, Jeffrey had forged my signature on legal documents and taken control of my bank account. The account with $3,200, not a fortune, but mine. Money I'd earned, saved, carefully managed. I thought about calling the police. Then I thought about something better. I opened my laptop and started researching. Arizona law, elder financial abuse, forged documents, power of attorney requirements. I'd spent 4 decades auditing people who thought they were smarter than everyone else. I knew how to find the lies, follow the money trail, document every discrepancy. I knew how to build a case that couldn't be argued away. This was just another audit, the most important one of my life. That evening, I played my part perfectly. When Jeffrey came home, I was in the kitchen making dinner. Vanessa was already there, drinking wine and complaining about her day. "Alonzo," Jeffrey said, his voice carefully casual, "I took care of that banking issue for you. Your account was a mess. I've simplified things." "Simplified?" I asked, not looking up from the vegetables I was chopping. "You'll get $50 a week deposited to a new account. For your personal expenses. Everything else is being managed properly now." Properly. He'd stolen my money and was giving me an allowance from it. "Thank you," I said. The words tasted like poison, but I smiled. "That's very thoughtful." He looked relieved. Vanessa smirked into her wine glass. After dinner, I heard them in the living room. They thought I was in my room, but I was in the hallway, my phone in my pocket, recording app running. Arizona is a one-party consent state. I only need my own permission to record a conversation I'm part of, even if I'm just listening. "I told you it would work," Vanessa was saying. "Old people don't understand banking anyway. He probably thinks you actually have power of attorney." "I do have it," Jeffrey said. "Legally, I mean. I filed the paperwork." "With his forged signature, babe. That's not exactly legal." "Who's going to check? He's not going to fight it. Where would he even go?" They laughed. Actually laughed. I stood in that hallway, phone recording every word, and remembered the man Jeffrey used to be, or thought he used to be. Maybe I'd been wrong about him from the start. Maybe the charming boyfriend, the devoted husband. Maybe that was the performance, and this was who he really was. I remembered Elizabeth's funeral, Jeffrey holding Sophie, both of them crying. I'd put my hand on his shoulder and said, "We'll get through this together." And he'd nodded, squeezed my hand. Had he been planning this even then? Had he looked at his grieving father-in-law and seen a resource to exploit? Back in my room, I opened my notebook. The pages were filling up fast. I added today's entries. Credit card taken. Bank account frozen through forged POA. $50 weekly allowance from my own money. Recording of conversation admitting forgery. Then I turned to a fresh page and wrote 3 words. Time to act. I'd spent 3 years being the helpful grandfather, the grateful guest, the old man who knew his place. I'd cooked and cleaned and watched Sophie while they treated me like furniture. But I wasn't some confused elderly man who didn't understand what was happening. I was a certified public accountant who'd spent 40 years finding financial crimes that people thought they'd hidden perfectly. I knew how to follow paper trails. I knew how to document evidence. I knew how to build a case so airtight that no amount of charm or lies could slip through the cracks. Jeffrey thought he was smart. Vanessa thought they'd won. They had no idea what was coming. I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and started typing. I had phone numbers to find, appointments to make, documents to gather. I had a very specific set of skills, and I was finally going to use them for something that mattered. In the mirror above my desk, I caught my own reflection. For the first time in 3 years, I looked alive. My eyes were sharp, focused, the corners of my mouth turned up in something that wasn't quite a smile. Jeffrey wanted to play games with an old man's money? Fine. But he was playing chess with someone who'd been thinking 10 moves ahead since before he was born. I picked up my phone and started making calls. This was going to require precision, patience, and perfect timing. Fortunately, those were the only things I'd ever been good at. The next morning, I started watching them the way I used to watch corporate executives who'd been cooking their books, with attention to detail, with patience, with the understanding that people who think they're getting away with something always get sloppy. Jeffrey left for work at 7:30, whistling. Actually whistling. Vanessa was still in bed. She didn't do mornings, apparently. That gave me 2 hours. I took photographs. The expensive bottle of scotch on the counter. $200, I checked online. The designer handbag Vanessa had left on the dining table. $850, according to the brand's website. The stack of credit card statements Jeffrey had carelessly left in his office, showing charges at restaurants I'd never been invited to, weekend trips I'd never heard about. All of it, presumably, funded by the salary from his IT job, the same job he claimed barely covered the mortgage, the same mortgage on a house he didn't own. I photographed everything, dated each image on my phone, backed them up to cloud storage. Then I went back to playing the helpful grandfather. When Vanessa finally emerged around 10, I had coffee ready. "Is this the Ethiopian blend?" she asked, not saying good morning. "Yes," I said. I'd bought it with the $50 Jeffrey had given me, my own money, given back to me like charity. She took a sip, wrinkled her nose. "It tastes burnt." It wasn't burnt. I'd made coffee for 40 years. But I apologized anyway and made a fresh pot while she scrolled through her phone, complaining about the heat, the house, the furniture, everything. "Jeffrey and I are looking at new places," she said suddenly. "Something more modern. This house is so dated." "It's a nice house," I said mildly. "For someone your age, maybe?" She examined her nails. "We need something that reflects who we are. Young, successful, not stuck in the past." I thought about the deed sitting in my safe deposit box, my name on the title since 2018. I thought about telling her right then, watching her face change, but I just nodded and poured her coffee. "Will you want lunch?" I asked. "I'm meeting someone at 1. She stood, taking her cup. "Clean up in here, would you? And the bathroom needs scrubbing." After she left, I took out my phone and opened the recording app. Arizona is a one-party consent state. I only need my own permission to record any conversation I'm part of or can overhear in my own home. Everything was legal. Everything was documented. That evening, Jeffrey came home in a good mood. Too good. "Alonzo," he called from the living room. "Come here a second." I found him on the couch, tie loosened, looking pleased with himself. "Sit down," he said. I sat in the chair across from him. Vanessa appeared from upstairs, her expression eager. They'd planned this together. "We've been thinking," Jeffrey began, "about your situation here." My situation, like I was a problem they were solving. "You've been here 3 years," he continued. "You've helped with Sophie, and we appreciate that. But Vanessa and I are building a life together. We need our space." "I understand," I said. "Do you?" Vanessa leaned forward. "Because you've been very comfortable here. Free room, free food." "I pay $400 a month," I reminded her. "Which doesn't even cover the utilities you use," she shot back. "But that's not the point. The point is, we think it's time to discuss your long-term plans." Long-term plans. I was 67. They were talking about me like I was a piece of furniture they were considering throwing out. "What did you have in mind?" I asked. Jeffrey glanced at Vanessa. She nodded. "There's a place we found," he said. "Senior living community. Very nice, very affordable. They have activities, meal plans, other people your age to socialize with." "A nursing home," I said. "Assisted living," Vanessa corrected. "It's different." "How much?" $2,800 a month, Jeffrey said. "But it's all-inclusive. And honestly, Alonzo, it would be better for you. You'd have support, care, people checking on you." $2,800 a month, nearly all of the money they thought I had. "I'm healthy," I said. "I don't need assistance." "Not yet," Vanessa said. "But you're almost 70. Things change. Wouldn't you rather be somewhere prepared for that?" They wanted me gone. Not just out of the way, completely removed, and they wanted me to pay for the privilege. I'll think about it, I said. Jeffrey's face hardened. We need an answer soon. We're serious about this. I understand. I'll think about it. After dinner, which I cooked while they sat in the living room talking about vacation plans, I went to my room, but I didn't close the door all the way. Weak, Jeffrey replied. If he doesn't weak, Jeffrey replied. If he doesn't agree, we'll make it uncomfortable enough that he leaves on his own. We should just evict him. It's your house. Technically, it was Elizabeth's house, and there's some paperwork issue with the title. My lawyer's looking into it. I almost smiled. His lawyer was going to find my name on that title. The house had been in Elizabeth's name until she got sick. Then she'd transferred it to me to avoid probate issues. We'd done it properly, legally. Jeffrey had never bothered to check. We'll figure it out, Vanessa said. I'm not living with your father-in-law forever. It's embarrassing. The next day, while they were both out, I went to my bank. Not the one Jeffrey had frozen, my other account at a different institution, the one he didn't know about. The balance showed $127,342. Money I'd saved carefully over decades, kept in a separate account for emergencies. This qualified. I went to the safe deposit box next. Inside was Elizabeth's will, the deed to the house, her death certificate, and copies of all the financial documents Jeffrey thought he'd hidden. I'd made copies of everything when she got sick. Professional habit, document everything. The will was clear. The house went to me, with the understanding that Sophie would always have a home there. Jeffrey had nothing. He'd assumed he'd inherited when Elizabeth died, but he'd never actually checked the paperwork. I photographed every page, backed up the images, then carefully returned everything to the box. On my way home, I stopped at a coffee shop and opened my laptop. I had research to do. Elder financial abuse laws in Arizona, penalties for forging power of attorney documents, custody rights for grandparents. That evening, I played chess online at the local club's digital platform. I'd been a member for 15 years, played every week. Tonight, I was matched against a regular opponent, a woman named Patricia Caldwell. We'd never met in person, but we'd played dozens of games. After I won, she'd left her queen exposed, distracted. She messaged me. Good game, Alonzo. You've been playing sharper lately. Focused, I typed back. Had some things on my mind. Anything you want to talk about? I hesitated, then checked her profile. It listed her profession, family law attorney. I'd seen it before, but never thought about it. Actually, I typed, I might need some legal advice. Professional consultation. Happy to help. My office is on Central Avenue. Call Monday and mention you're from the chess club. My secretary will fit you in. I saved her contact information and logged off. Back in my room, I updated my notebook. 3 weeks of documentation now. Photographs, recordings, financial records, witness statements from Sophie about how they treated me. Every demand, every insult, every instance of them spending money while claiming poverty. It was almost beautiful in its completeness, a perfect case. I looked at my reflection in the small mirror above my desk. 3 weeks ago, I'd looked old, beaten down. Now my eyes were sharp, calculating. I recognized this version of myself, the auditor who'd found embezzlement schemes that CEOs had thought were untouchable. Jeffrey and Vanessa thought they were so clever. They had no idea they were being audited by someone who'd spent 40 years finding exactly what people tried to hide. I opened my laptop again and started drafting a timeline. Every event, every conversation, every transaction, the kind of documentation that would make any lawyer smile. Monday couldn't come fast enough. The law office of Patricia Caldwell was on the 14th floor of a downtown building, all glass and steel with a view of the Phoenix skyline. I arrived 15 minutes early, wearing my best suit, the one I'd worn to Elizabeth's funeral, now pulled from the back of my closet. The secretary looked up when I entered. Mr. Murphy? Yes, I have an appointment. From the chess club. Patricia told me to expect you. She smiled. Go ahead and have a seat. She's just finishing up with a client. I sat in the waiting area, a leather folder on my lap. Inside was everything. The notebook, printed photographs, financial statements, recordings transcribed to text, timeline of events, 3 weeks of evidence, organized with the precision I'd learned in 4 decades of auditing. Mr. Murphy? A woman emerged from the inner office, late 40s, sharp suit, intelligent eyes. She extended her hand. Patricia Caldwell, good to finally meet you in person. Her handshake was firm, professional. Please come in. Her office was impressive, law books lining one wall, framed degrees on another. She gestured to the chairs across from her desk. So, she said, settling into her seat, you mentioned needing legal advice. What's going on? I opened the folder and placed it on her desk. I need to evict my son-in-law from my house, file charges for elder financial abuse, and potentially seek custody of my granddaughter. Her eyebrows rose slightly. That's quite a list. It's quite a situation. I slid the folder toward her. Everything's documented. She opened it. I watched her face as she began to read. The initial professional interest shifted to focus, then to something that looked like surprise. She looked up after a few minutes. You're a CPA? Was. Retired 5 years ago. It shows. She flipped through pages. This is Mr. Murphy. This is some of the most thorough documentation I've ever seen. Most people come in with vague complaints and no evidence. You've got dates, times, amounts, photographs, recordings. She paused. These recordings are legal? Arizona is a one-party consent state. I was present for or party to every conversation recorded. You know your law. I know documentation. The law I'm learning as I go. She continued reading, and I saw her expression harden as she got to the parts about Jeffrey, forging the power of attorney, freezing my accounts, discussing sending me to assisted living to get me out of the house. This is elder abuse, she said quietly, financial and emotional. It's a serious crime in Arizona. I know. And the house? She looked at another document. The deed is in your name? Since 2018. My daughter transferred it to me when she got sick to avoid probate complications. I let Jeffrey live there after she died because he's Sophie's father and I wanted her to have stability. He apparently assumed he'd inherited it. Patricia sat back in her chair, studying me. Mr. Murphy, let me be clear about what you're proposing. If we move forward with this, your son-in-law will lose his home, potentially face criminal charges, and could lose custody of his daughter. This will destroy his life. I'm aware. And you're certain you want to proceed. I thought about the last 3 years. The gradual slide from welcomed family member to unpaid servant. The contempt in Vanessa's voice. The greed in Jeffrey's eyes. The way they talked about shipping me off to die in some cheap facility while they sold my house and spent my money. I'm certain, I said. She nodded. Then let's discuss strategy. We spent the next hour going through everything. Patricia explained that we'd need to file 3 separate actions: an eviction notice based on my ownership of the property, a civil lawsuit for elder financial abuse, and a petition for emergency custody of Sophie based on evidence of Jeffrey's unfitness as a parent. The recordings will help with the abuse case, she said, especially the ones where he discusses the forged power of attorney. We'll need a handwriting expert to analyze that document. I can recommend someone. What about Sophie? I asked. She's 9. This will be traumatic for her. The court will appoint a social worker to interview her. If what you've documented is accurate, the yelling, the neglect, his focus on his girlfriend over his daughter, she'll likely tell them she feels safer with you. She does. I've been the one taking care of her since Elizabeth died. That'll come through in the interview. Patricia made notes on her legal pad. We'll need to move carefully but quickly. If Jeffrey suspects what's coming, he might try to counterfile or remove Sophie from your access. He won't suspect. He thinks I'm a confused old man who doesn't understand what's happening to him. She smiled slightly. That's his mistake. Now, about my fees. I have $127,000 in savings. Whatever this costs, I can cover it. Her expression shifted to respect. Mr. Murphy, I don't think this will require anywhere near that amount. My retainer is $5,000. Based on the strength of your documentation, I'd estimate another $5,000 to $10,000 for the full case, including expert witnesses and filing fees. I wrote her a check for $5,000 on the spot. One more thing, I said. I need a private investigator, someone who can document Jeffrey's activities over the next few weeks, discreetly. I work with someone, Marcus Webb, former police detective. Very thorough, very discreet. I'll have him contact you. We shook hands at the door. Mr. Murphy, she said. I've handled a lot of family law cases. Most people come in emotional, reactive, unprepared. You're none of those things. Your son-in-law has no idea what's about to hit him. Good, I said. I want it to be a complete surprise. That evening, I played my role perfectly. I cooked dinner, cleaned up, listened to Vanessa complain about the neighbors, and Jeffrey talk about his plans to renovate the house, my house, once they'd figured out the living situation. Any thoughts on that senior living place? He asked over dessert. Still thinking, I said. Don't think too long, Alonzo. We need to make decisions. I understand. After they'd gone to bed, I sat in my room with my notebook. Patricia had given me a timeline. We'd need 2 more weeks to prepare everything, get the handwriting analysis done, have Marcus Webb document Jeffrey's activities, prepare all the legal filings, 2 more weeks of cooking their meals and cleaning their messes, 2 more weeks of being treated like I was worthless. I could manage that. I'd spent 40 years sitting in corporate offices, smiling politely while examining books and finding the fraud executives had spent months trying to hide. I knew how to be patient, how to wait for exactly the right moment. Marcus Webb called the next morning while Jeffrey was at work. Ms. Caldwell asked me to reach out, he said. His voice was gravelly, professional. I understand you need surveillance services. My son-in-law, I need documentation of his activities, financial habits, associations, particularly anything that would support a claim of unfitness as a parent. Time frame? 2 weeks. I'll start today. Standard rate is $80 an hour plus expenses. Ms. Caldwell mentioned you wanted thorough. Thorough is exactly what I want. You'll have it. Over the next week, I watched Jeffrey and Vanessa with new eyes. Not the eyes of a victim, but of a prosecutor, building a case. Every expensive dinner they went to while claiming they could barely afford groceries. Every time Jeffrey snapped at Sophie for interrupting his video games. Every moment Vanessa spent on her phone while I did the housework. Marcus sent me his first report 5 days later. It was devastating. Jeffrey had spent $4,300 at online casinos in the past 2 months. He'd gone to bars with coworkers 3 times in the past week, spending an average of $150 each time. He'd lied to me about working late on 2 occasions. Actually, he'd been at a sports bar watching games. And Vanessa? She'd been meeting another man for lunch. Twice. A man who drove a BMW and owned a software company. Marcus had photographs. I added everything to my file. The folder was now 3 inches thick. That Sunday, I played chess online. Patricia was there. How are things progressing? She messaged after our game. The investigator's earning his fee, I typed. Everything's coming together. Good. We'll be ready to file in 1 week. Are you prepared for what comes next? I looked around my small room, at the suitcase I'd already started packing bit by bit, at the list of apartments I'd been researching, at the future I was building, piece by careful piece. I've been preparing my whole life for this, I typed back, and I realized it was true. Every audit I'd ever conducted, every fraud I'd ever uncovered, every lie I'd ever documented. It had all been practice for this moment. Jeffrey thought he'd broken me down into a servant, someone too old and weak to fight back. He was about to learn that sometimes the quietest person in the room is the most dangerous. I closed my laptop and smiled. Not the warm smile I'd given my daughter, not the patient smile I'd given Sophie. This was the smile I'd given CEOs, right before I handed them evidence of their embezzlement. Cold, precise, absolutely certain. 2 more weeks, and Jeffrey Morrison would understand exactly who he'd been living with. Not a helpless old man, a hunter who'd been patiently waiting for his prey to feel safe enough to expose its throat. The following week, Jeffrey's confidence reached new heights. He'd started leaving documents on the kitchen counter, papers I was apparently too senile to understand. Mortgage refinancing applications, listings for assisted living facilities with monthly rates circled in red, real estate appraisal forms estimating the house at $680,000. Just planning ahead, he said when I asked about them, making sure we're ready for any eventuality. Makes sense, I said, serving his breakfast. My hands were steady. My voice was calm. Inside, I was cataloging every word for the file that now sat in Patricia Caldwell's office. That afternoon, while Jeffrey was at work and Vanessa was at her supposed yoga class, Marcus had confirmed she was actually meeting her BMW driving friend again, I started the delicate work of moving my belongings out. Not everything. That would be suspicious. Just the things that mattered. My vinyl collection went first, 3 records at a time, packed carefully in a canvas shopping bag. Then my books, the first editions, the ones Elizabeth had given me for birthdays, my photographs of her, of Sophie as a baby, the chess set my father had carved by hand. I'd already rented the apartment, 1,500 square feet on the 15th floor of a building in downtown Phoenix, floor-to-ceiling windows with a view of Camelback Mountain, $1,850 a month, first and last month paid in cash. The building manager, a woman named Rosa, hadn't even blinked when I'd told her I was leaving a difficult living situation. My father went through something similar, she'd said. Family can be complicated. You need any help moving? You let me know. Each trip to the apartment took 40 minutes round trip. I made 2 trips that day. By evening, I'd transferred half my clothes, all my important documents, and the small things that made a place feel like home. When Jeffrey came back, I was in the kitchen making dinner. He walked past me without acknowledgement, went straight to his office, and slammed the door. Through the wall, I heard him on the phone. No, I told you, it's under control. The old man's not going to be a problem. Yes, I have the paperwork. He'll sign whatever I put in front of him. He's got no other options. I continued chopping vegetables, my knife moving in precise, rhythmic cuts. That recording device in my pocket was capturing every word. Vanessa arrived 30 minutes later, her yoga mat suspiciously clean for someone who'd supposedly just done hot yoga. Alonzo, Jeffrey, and I need to talk to you after dinner, she said, not meeting my eyes. Of course. Dinner was quiet. Sophie chattered about her day at school. She'd gotten an A on her science project, the one I'd helped her with, but Jeffrey and Vanessa barely listened. They kept exchanging looks, the kind of glances people share when they're about to do something unpleasant. After Sophie went upstairs to do homework, they cornered me in the living room. Alonzo, Jeffrey began, using that patronizing tone he'd perfected, we've made a decision about your living situation. I set down the dish towel I'd been holding. Oh? You still have that bank account, right? The one with $3,200? The one you blocked? I asked mildly. The one I'm managing for you, he corrected. For your own good. You're not exactly financially savvy, and at your age... What about it? I interrupted. We need you to sign that money over to us. All of it. He slid a document across the coffee table. Just sign here. I picked up the paper. It was a transfer authorization giving Jeffrey complete control and ownership of the blocked account, the one he'd already stolen from me. Now he wanted it made official. And if I don't, I asked. Vanessa leaned forward. Then you'll need to find somewhere else to live. We've been more than patient, Alonzo, but we can't keep supporting you. This house needs work, and we need capital. This house, I said slowly, needs work. The roof, the foundation, Jeffrey said. You probably haven't noticed, but there are issues. Expensive issues. We need that money. I looked at the document, at Jeffrey's confident smirk, at Vanessa's cold calculation. Can I think about it overnight? I asked. Jeffrey's expression flickered with annoyance. What's there to think about? It's pretty straightforward. I'd just like to sleep on it. I'll give you an answer tomorrow morning, before you leave for work. He exchanged a glance with Vanessa. She shrugged. Fine, Jeffrey said. But we need an answer tomorrow, Alonzo. No more delays. Tomorrow, I agreed. I went to my room and closed the door. Then I pulled out my phone and called Patricia. He's asking for the money tomorrow morning, I said. That's perfect timing, she replied. The eviction notice, the elder abuse lawsuit, and the custody petition are ready to file. The handwriting expert confirmed the power of attorney's signature is forged. We have his sworn affidavit. Marcus's final report came in this afternoon. Your son-in-law has $23,700 in gambling debts to online casinos. $23,000, I repeated. He's been using virtual private networks to access illegal gambling sites. It's all documented. Combined with the financial abuse, the forged documents, and the neglect of his daughter, we have an overwhelming case. When do we file? Thursday morning. Can you be out of the house by then? I looked around my nearly empty room. I'll be gone before he wakes up. The sheriff will serve the papers at 8 a.m. I'd suggest you're somewhere else when that happens. I will be. After I hung up, I sat at my desk and pulled out my notebook for the last time. I'd filled every page with evidence, dates, quotes, documentation. 3 years of systematic abuse, all carefully recorded by a man they thought was too old and confused to fight back. I heard voices from downstairs, Jeffrey and Vanessa, talking in low tones. I activated the recording app on my phone and moved closer to my door. Can't believe he actually hesitated, Vanessa was saying. What's he going to do? Say no? He'll sign, Jeffrey said. He always does what I tell him. The old man's broken. And after he signs? We give it 2 weeks. Then we tell him the senior living place has an opening. By the end of the month, he's gone. We list the house, sell it for $680, and we're set. What about Sophie? What about her? She's fine. The old man spoils her anyway. She'll adjust. You're not worried he'll make trouble? Jeffrey laughed. Actually laughed. Alonzo, make trouble? The man can barely work his cell phone. He's not going to do anything. I stood in the darkness of my room, phone recording every word, and felt absolutely nothing. No anger, no hurt, just the cold, professional detachment of an auditor who'd found the fraud and was ready to present his findings. They had no idea. None at all. I packed my final bag, just the essentials I'd need for the next few days. Tomorrow morning, I'd tell Jeffrey I needed to think about it a bit longer. I'd promised to sign Thursday morning, right before he left for work. And Thursday morning, while Jeffrey Morrison was confidently heading to his office, expecting to come home to a signed document and a broken old man, the sheriff would be knocking on his door with a very different set of papers. I climbed into bed and set my alarm for 5 a.m. One more breakfast to cook, one more performance to give, one more day of being the helpless victim. Then the curtain would fall, and Jeffrey would finally see the show he'd actually been watching. I fell asleep smiling. The last week felt like living in a play where only I knew the real script. Every morning I made breakfast. Every evening I cleaned up. Every moment I was the perfect picture of the defeated old man who'd given up fighting. Jeffrey and Vanessa ate it up like candy. On Monday, Jeffrey asked again about signing the transfer papers. I told him I was still thinking. His jaw tightened, but he nodded curtly. Thursday morning, he said. Final answer. Thursday morning, I agreed. Tuesday, I made my last trip to the apartment. The movers, 3 guys Patricia had recommended, discreet and efficient, had already transferred my bed, my dresser, my leather armchair. The apartment looked like a home now, my home. Clean, quiet, mine. Rosa, the building manager, stopped by as I was arranging my vinyl collection. You settling in okay, Mr. Murphy? Getting there, I said. I'll be here full-time in a few days. She nodded knowingly. Sometimes the hardest part is just getting out. But once you do, you wonder why you waited so long. Wednesday evening, I was in my room when Sophie knocked. Grandpa? She said softly. Can I come in? Of course, sweetheart. She sat on my bed, the temporary one, since I'd already moved my real one out. She looked troubled. You seem different lately, she said, like you're thinking about something big. Smart girl, just like her mother. I'm thinking about something, I admitted, but it's going to be okay. Better than okay. Promise? I promise. Sophie, do you remember when we talked about how sometimes grown-ups make mistakes? She nodded. Well, sometimes those mistakes need to be fixed. That's all I'm doing. Fixing some mistakes. Is Daddy making mistakes? I chose my words carefully. What do you think? She was quiet for a long moment. He yells a lot now, and he never wants to play anymore. And Vanessa. She trailed off. And Vanessa what? She's not nice. Not like Mom was nice. Mom would never say the things Vanessa says about you. My heart broke a little. No, she wouldn't have. Are you going away, Grandpa? Not away from you. Never from you. But yes, I'm going somewhere different. And when everything settles, you'll be able to visit me. We'll play chess and eat ice cream, and everything will be better. I promise you that. She hugged me tight. Okay, I trust you. After she left, I sat in the darkness for a long time. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about protecting Sophie from growing up in a home where cruelty was normal, where love was transactional, where her father cared more about money than his own daughter. Thursday morning arrived bright and clear. I was up at 5, as usual. I made breakfast: eggs, bacon, toast, fresh coffee. My last performance in this kitchen. Jeffrey came down at 6:30, checking his phone. Vanessa was still asleep. "So," he said, not looking at me. "The papers. You signing or not?" I plated his eggs with careful precision. "I'll sign before you leave. Let me just get them from my room." "Finally," he muttered. "About time you saw sense." I went upstairs, picked up my last bag, the one with my laptop, my important papers, my photograph of Elizabeth, and walked back down. But instead of going to the kitchen, I went straight to the front door. "Alonzo!" Jeffrey called. "Where are you going?" I opened the door, stepped onto the porch, and turned back. "I'm not signing anything, Jeffrey," I said calmly. "And you should expect visitors around 8 o'clock. I'd suggest you be here for that." His face went blank with confusion. "What are you talking about?" "You'll find out soon enough." I walked down the driveway to where I'd parked my car the night before, around the corner, out of sight. I climbed in, started the engine, and drove away from the house on Desert Bloom Drive for the last time. By 7:15, I was in my new apartment, looking out at the Phoenix skyline. My phone sat on the counter, face up. At 8 o'clock exactly, it would start ringing. I made myself a cup of coffee, the good kind, the Ethiopian blend Vanessa had demanded I buy, and settled into my leather armchair. At 8:03, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Papers served. Sheriff confirms delivery to female resident Vanessa Blake. Male resident Jeffrey Morrison called to the scene. Both received full packet." I sipped my coffee. At 8:15, my phone started ringing. Jeffrey's number. I watched it ring through to voicemail. It rang again and again. By 8:30, I had 17 missed calls. The voicemails were works of art. The first one was confusion. "Alonzo, what the hell is going on? Call me back right now." The second was anger. "You can't do this. This is my house. Call me back or I swear." The third was panic. "Alonzo, please, we need to talk about this. This is insane. You don't understand what you're doing." By the 10th one, he was begging, "Please, just call me. We can work this out. I'm sorry, okay? Just please, call me back." Vanessa called too. Her messages were less varied, mostly screaming about lawsuits and lawyers, and how I was a senile old man who didn't know what I was doing. I blocked both numbers. At 2 p.m., my new bank called to confirm the police report had been filed, and my original account, the one with $3,200, was being unfrozen. The forged power of attorney had been flagged as fraudulent. At 5 p.m., Marcus Webb sent his final report. Jeffrey had left work early, driving erratically. He'd gone to 3 different bars, spending money he didn't have. The report included photographs of him looking haggard, desperate, lost. I felt nothing but satisfaction. Patricia called at 6. "The courthouse confirmed both filings are entered into the system," she said. "The eviction notice gives them 30 days. The elder abuse lawsuit has a preliminary hearing in 2 weeks. And Social Services has already scheduled an interview with Sophie for next Monday." "How did they take it?" I asked. According to the sheriff, Mr. Morrison turned the color of old newspaper and couldn't form a complete sentence for 5 minutes. Ms. Blake started screaming about illegal eviction, but the sheriff explained very clearly that you're the legal owner of the property and have every right to evict anyone you choose. "And the custody petition?" "That's what really broke him," the sheriff said when he read that part. Mr. Morrison actually sat down on the floor. Just sat, like his legs stopped working. I imagined it. Jeffrey, the confident manipulator, the man who'd systematically stolen from me and degraded me, sitting on the floor of my house, holding papers that dismantled his entire world. "Mr. Murphy?" Patricia said. "Are you there?" "I'm here. Just thinking. This is it. The point of no return. Are you absolutely certain?" I looked around my new apartment, at the freedom I'd bought with patience and planning, at the future I'd built while pretending to be broken. "I've never been more certain of anything in my life," I said. That night I sat at my new chess table, the one I'd set up by the window, and opened my laptop. I had an online game scheduled with my usual opponent, an engineer from Seattle. As we played, I thought about what Jeffrey had said. The old man can barely work his cell phone. I'd let him think that. Let him think I was confused, helpless, defeated. But you don't survive 40 years in corporate auditing without learning how to appear harmless while sharpening your knives. Checkmate in 12 moves. I smiled at the screen. Tomorrow, the real game would begin. Lawyers, depositions, evidence presentations. But the outcome was already decided. I'd spent 3 years collecting every piece, positioning every advantage. Jeffrey had been playing checkers while I played chess. And he'd never even realized the board had changed beneath him. My phone showed 89 missed calls between the two of them. I poured myself a small bourbon, the expensive kind I'd bought with my own money from my own unfrozen account, and raised it toward the Phoenix skyline. To new beginnings, I said quietly, and to knowing exactly when to stop being the victim. The city lights glittered like pieces on a chessboard, and somewhere out there, Jeffrey Morrison was finally understanding that the helpless old man he'd been tormenting for 3 years had just destroyed his entire life with nothing but patience, documentation, and the law. I told him I'd give him an answer Thursday morning. I had, just not the one he expected. The next morning I woke to silence in my new apartment. My phone buzzed, Patricia confirming my account was unfrozen, $3,200 restored. The sheriff had served papers at 8:04 a.m. By afternoon, Rachel Torres from Child Protective Services called. She scheduled a home visit for 2 o'clock. I prepared Sophie's room, her favorite books, the stuffed elephant, everything ready. Rachel arrived precisely on time. She reviewed my documentation, 340 incidents of abuse, financial manipulation, forged documents. I'm a CPA, I said. Documentation is what I do. She listened to the recordings. Jeffrey's voice. The old man's broken. Mr. Murphy, this didn't happen overnight, she said. No. 3 months of evidence. This isn't revenge. It's protection. After she left, my doorbell rang. Derek Vaughn, Jeffrey's attorney. Cheap suit, nervous eyes. My client offers $500 a month to settle, he said. I almost laughed. That's generous, considering he gave me $50 a week. He's willing to let you stay rent-free for 6 months? In the house I own? I pulled out the deed. Filed with Maricopa County in 2018. Derek's face paled. I listed Jeffrey's crimes. The gambling, the forged documents, Vanessa's affair. You have evidence? All legally obtained. Tell Jeffrey no. He has 30 days to vacate my property. Derek left, defeated. I called Patricia. He sent his lawyer, I said. Good. Let them waste time. That night, I couldn't sleep, not from worry, but from freedom. For 3 years, I'd lived in anxiety. Now, in my own apartment, I felt peace. Tomorrow, Sophie would come home from camp. I'd tell her things were changing, that Grandpa would keep her safe. Jeffrey had been playing checkers. I'd been playing chess, and he'd never even known the board had changed. I picked Sophie up from camp on Friday. Over ice cream, I told her about my new apartment. You have a room there with big windows where you can see the whole city, I said. Her eyes lit up. Really? On Monday, Rachel took Sophie for her interview. Just tell the truth, I told her. Hours later, Patricia called. Jeffrey filed a counter petition. He's claiming you kidnapped Sophie. That's insane. It's desperate. Emergency hearing Wednesday. When Sophie returned, Rachel nodded at me. That child loves you very much. Tuesday, Marcus Webb sent a recording, Jeffrey at a bar discussing the case. Kids can be coached. Doesn't matter what Sophie says. Patricia added it to our evidence. That's witness tampering. Wednesday morning, I dressed in my best suit. At the courthouse, Jeffrey glared at me with pure hatred. Judge Whitmore reviewed the files. Mr. Vaughn, present your argument. Your Honor, this grandfather is weaponizing the system. Belief isn't evidence, the judge interrupted. Ms. Caldwell? Patricia presented everything. The deed, the forged power of attorney, the handwriting analysis, the gambling records. Mr. Morrison, did you forge this signature? Judge Whitmore asked. Jeffrey stammered. I was trying to help him. That's a yes. The judge turned to Rachel. The child feels safer with Mr. Murphy, Rachel confirmed. Judge Whitmore's gavel came down. Temporary custody to Mr. Murphy. Supervised visitation for Mr. Morrison. 2 hours Saturday. The eviction stands. 30 days to vacate. Jeffrey stood, his face ashen. Vanessa had already left him. Outside, I called Sophie. How would you feel about staying with Grandpa? With the big windows? Yes. Then yes. I felt victory, not just over Jeffrey, but over fear itself. The game wasn't over, but I was winning. The weeks that followed were a masterclass in watching someone unravel. Jeffrey hired a better lawyer, filed endless motions. Patricia demolished each one with documentation. Sophie thrived. Better grades, more smiles. Jeffrey's supervised visits were painful for him. Sophie was polite, but distant. Vanessa moved in with the BMW guy. Jeffrey lost his job at TechFlow Solutions. By mid-August, he was sleeping on his brother's couch, working at a call center. The man who'd given me $50 a week was now living on charity. On August 28th, the final custody hearing arrived. Jeffrey looked hollow, defeated. Judge Whitmore reviewed everything. Full custody to Mr. Murphy. Visitation every other weekend. Supervised for 6 months. Mr. Morrison must attend parenting classes and financial counseling. Jeffrey nodded silently. The criminal case is resolved. 18 months probation, $5,000 fine plus restitution. Outside, Jeffrey approached me. Alonzo, I wanted to say... He couldn't finish. I looked at this man who'd tormented me for 3 years. $50 a week, Jeffrey. That's what you thought I was worth. That's all you're worth now, and that's more than you deserve. He flinched. I walked away without looking back. September brought new beginnings. Sophie started 4th grade, joined chess club, made friends. I stood at the house on Desert Bloom Drive, watching Jeffrey load his last belongings. Sophie held my hand. "Hi, Dad," she said when he approached. They hugged awkwardly. The distance was obvious. "Your room at Grandpa's is nice," Sophie said. "I have my own desk." Jeffrey nodded, walked to the house one last time. "Are you happy, Grandpa?" Sophie asked later. "Yes," I said. "I am." "Me too." That evening we played chess. Sophie set a trap, 3 moves to checkmate. "You see it," I said. She grinned and executed it perfectly. "Checkmate. You're thinking 10 moves ahead now." "You taught me. Plan, be patient. People who only think about the next move always lose." My phone buzzed. "Patricia, criminal case finalized. It's done." I texted back. "Thank you." Sophie captured my rook. "Got you." Outside, Phoenix glittered. Sophie was safe. Justice was served. I'd done it legally, methodically, perfectly. Just like a good audit. Jeffrey had been playing checkers. I'd been playing chess. And the game had been over before he knew it had begun. If you liked this story, please like this video. Subscribe to the channel and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.